The air above Europe in 1944 was filled with fire, smoke, and thunder. Bombers crawled across the sky like slow-moving fortresses. German flak guns filled the air with black bursts of death. And cutting through it all, a roaring beast with 8.50 caliber machine guns and a dive so deadly it could tear itself apart if the pilot wasn't careful. It was massive, loud, and ugly, but when it appeared in the sky, German soldiers dove for cover. This was the P-47 Thunderbolt, the Jug as its pilots affectionately called it. It was one of the heaviest, fastest, and toughest fighters of World War II to the Allies. It was a hero. To the Axis, it was a nightmare. And to history, it became one of the most lethal flying monsters the world had ever seen. Number 1. Born from American steel. The story of the P-47 begins in 1940 when Europe was already burning. The German Luftwaffe ruled the skies, and America knew it needed something powerful enough to face them. Republic Aviation, led by the brilliant engineer Alexander Kartveli, set out to build a new kind of fighter, one that could match the speed of German Bf-109s and FW-190s, but also carry heavy weapons and survive brutal punishment. Kartveli's philosophy was simple. If it doesn't have power, give it more power. And so he built a monster. At its heart was the Pratt & Whitney R 2800 Double Wasp, an 18-cylinder air-cooled radial engine that produced over 2,000 horsepower. It was one of the largest piston engines ever put in a fighter plane. The prototype looked too big, too heavy, too slow, but when it took off, it stunned everyone. It could climb faster than expected, dive like a meteor, and deliver staggering firepower. When it entered service in 1942, pilots nicknamed it the Jug, short for Juggernaut, and that's exactly what it was. Number 2, a monster built for war. The P-47 wasn't sleek or elegant like the Spitfire or the Mustang. It was built like a tank with wings. Its armor plating protected the pilot from head to toe. Its massive engine could take hits and keep roaring. Its 8 Browning 50 caliber machine guns, 4 in each wing, could fire 13 rounds per second. Each burst could shred enemy aircraft, locomotives, or tanks. And if that wasn't enough, it could also carry 2,500 pounds of bombs or rockets, turning it into a flying artillery platform. But with all that power came a price. It was enormous. At over 10,000 pounds, it was heavier than most twin-engine bombers. Yet once pilots learned to trust it, the P-47 became unstoppable. Number 3, into combat, the Juggernaut awakens. The P-47 first saw action with the 8th Air Force in England in early 1943. At first, the pilots struggled. The Thunderbolt couldn't climb quickly to bomber altitude, and its range was limited, barely 200 miles before it needed to turn home. But the Germans quickly learned to fear it. In combat, the P-47 could dive faster than anything else in the sky. German fighters who tried to chase it often watched in disbelief as the Jug plunged toward the ground, pulling out safely just before impact, something their lighter aircraft couldn't survive. Then came the upgrades, drop tanks that extended its range deep into occupied Europe. Suddenly, the Thunderbolt could escort bombers all the way to the heart of Germany. The Luftwaffe's reign was ending. Number 4, the battle for Europe's skies. By mid-1944, the P-47 was everywhere, sweeping the skies over France, Germany, and Italy. Its pilots, like Francis Gabby Gabreski, Robert S. Johnson, and Hub Zemke, became legends. Gabreski shot down 28 enemy aircraft, making him one of America's top aces. But it wasn't just about air combat. The Thunderbolt's real terror came from what it could do on the ground. Flying low, its 8 guns could turn entire convoys into flaming wrecks. German tanks, trains, and trucks were no match for the Jug's strafing runs. One pilot recalled, "We'd come in so low we could see the faces of the men on the ground, and then the world would explode beneath us." By D-Day, June 1944, the P-47 was the backbone of Allied air power in Western Europe. It destroyed bridges, cut rail lines, and annihilated armored columns trying to reach Normandy. The Luftwaffe was bleeding out, and the Thunderbolt was holding the knife. Number 5. Built to take a beating, the P-47's toughness became the stuff of legend. Pilots returned from missions with wings full of holes, tails half gone, and engines spewing oil, and still landed safely. One pilot, LT Robert Johnson, was ambushed by German fighters and took over 200 hits to his aircraft. His canopy jammed. He couldn't bail out, and his engine was on fire, but the P-47 refused to die. Johnson limped back to base, his plane barely holding together. Mechanics counted 21 bullets in the propeller hub alone. That day, the Jug proved something to every pilot who flew it. It wasn't just a fighter, it was a survivor. Number 6. The engine that could outrun death. At the core of the Thunderbolt's invincibility was its engine, that massive R-2800 radial. Unlike liquid-cooled engines used in Mustangs or Messerschmitts, the P-47's air-cooled design meant it could take hits without losing coolant or catching fire. It could even keep running with cylinders blown off. In combat, that often made the difference between life and death. And with a turbo supercharger mounted behind the cockpit, it could maintain high power even at 30,000 feet, a critical advantage during bomber escort missions over Germany. The combination of speed, firepower, and toughness turned the P-47 into a multi-role monster, part fighter, part bomber, and pure destruction machine. Number 7. The Thunder over Europe. By the end of 1944, the sound of the P-47's engine had become a nightmare to German troops. They called it the Jabbo, short for Jag Bomber or Fighter Bomber. Every time they heard that deep thunder in the sky, they knew hell was coming. The Thunderbolts hunted anything that moved: tanks, trucks, trains, artillery. They blew up bridges and cut off supply lines. During the Battle of the Bulge, the P-47s flew hundreds of sorties a day, striking German armor that tried to break through the Allied lines. Their pilots flew through snow, fog, and flak, sometimes making 6 or 7 missions in a single day. They were exhausted, but relentless. By early 1945, the Luftwaffe was shattered. Germany's once feared Air Force was now hiding on the ground, hunted by the very monsters it once tried to destroy. Number 8. Beyond Europe Pacific Thunder. While the P-51 Mustang became the glamour fighter of Europe, the Thunderbolt also saw fierce action in the Pacific. There, it fought Japanese Zeros and bombed island fortresses across New Guinea, the Philippines, and Okinawa. Its long-range P-47N version could escort 29 bombers over the vast Pacific and hit targets deep inside Japan. Even against lighter, more maneuverable Japanese fighters, the Thunderbolt held its own. It couldn't turn as tight, but it didn't need to. Its dive speed, firepower, and durability made it a deadly opponent. One pilot summed it up simply: you could take the P-47 into hell and come back smiling. Number 9. Legends of the Jug. By the end of the war, the P-47 had flown more than 746,000 missions, more than any other U.S. fighter. It destroyed over 6,000 enemy aircraft in the air and 160,000 ground targets, tanks, trucks, locomotives, and guns. But its greatest victory was psychological. German soldiers came to fear the sound of its guns more than anything else. It was said that entire convoys would scatter at the first sign of a Thunderbolt overhead. The P-47 didn't just fight battles, it crushed morale. Number 10. The unsung hero of the skies. Despite its incredible record, the P-47 often lived in the shadow of the P-51 Mustang, the faster, sleeker escort fighter that captured the public imagination. But among the men who fought on the ground and in the air, the Jug was legendary. It didn't need elegance, it didn't need fame. It just needed to get the job done, and it did that better than almost any aircraft in history. After the war, thousands of P-47s were scrapped or sold to allied nations. Some served in Latin America and even Korea, long after the jet age had begun. But for those who flew it, the memory of that thunder never faded. Number 11. The thunder still echoes. Today, only a handful of P-47 Thunderbolts remain airworthy, their massive engines still thundering through the clouds like echoes from a bygone age. Restored with care and reverence, these warbirds appear at air shows around the world, each flight a living salute to the men who once fought and fell beneath their wings. When a P-47 dives and its 8 machine guns blaze, the sound shakes the air, a reminder of the raw, unfiltered power that once turned the tide of war. During World War E, the Thunderbolt was both feared and beloved, feared by the enemy for its firepower, and beloved by the soldiers it protected. It was the largest and heaviest single-engine fighter of its time, capable of absorbing massive damage and still returning home. To Allied troops on the ground, its arrival meant survival. To those below enemy lines, it was vengeance from the sky. Even now, when one of these giants takes flight, it brings with it the memory of an era defined by courage, innovation, and sacrifice. The P-47 may no longer rule the skies, but the thunder it unleashed still echoes across generations, a sound of freedom forged in fire and steel. Conclusion: the P-47 Thunderbolt wasn't pretty, it wasn't glamorous, but it was unstoppable. It outflew, outfought, and out-survived almost everything thrown at it. It was a machine that turned American industry, engineering, and courage into a single weapon of thunder and steel. To this day, its legend lives on, not in museums or documentaries, but in the stories of the men who flew it and the freedom they helped secure. Because in the sky over Europe, one truth became clear: when the jug roared, the enemy ran.